All right, hey everybody.
Hey.
I am here with
All
Senator
right.
Mazie Hirono. We're at the corner of Main and Market Street in Wailuku, and we are going to walk story on this beautiful day.
I love it. Walk story.
Thanks so much for joining us today,
Sure.
Senator. You know, I really especially want to thank you because we are in our first week of a new national emergency, right? So I wanted
call
to
it
ask
the
you,
fake
what
emergency.
what are your thoughts
It's
about
only
the
an
national emergency?
in the president's mind, and so he created this chaos, and now Hawaii is one of the states that has joined a lawsuit to challenge the president's use of the National Emergency Act for this purpose, because an emergency should be open and obvious, like maybe 9/11 and things like that. But this is an emergency that is not even an emergency. So I think that court challenge. But this is what happens when the president makes these kinds of decisions. It's pretty political. When he says, "Oh, I don't really have to do this," I think that totally cuts against the emergency part of the national emergency. But he then, it then results in chaos, and states like Hawaii, California, and other states to use their resources to challenge this exercise of powers, abuse of exercise of powers. So that's taxpayers' money going for a challenge that shouldn't even happen. So sadly, with this president, he does not care about the consequences of his decisions. No, the totally unnecessary shutdown. Longest in history. Our country lost, in addition to the harm that it caused to 800,000 federal workers and the contractors, but it caused our economy to lose $11 billion, $3 billion of which will never be recovered. Totally unnecessary. And he was prepared to do it again. But finally, Congress, especially the Senate, acted like the separate branch of government that it is. Although Mitch McConnell held off until the last possible moment to keep government running until the end of the fiscal year. So we should never use a shutdown as a bargaining chip, and the president used 800,000 federal employees as hostages for his vanity wall. Because that's what it is, it's a vanity wall. And of course we all care about border security, so there are many other ways to effect border security without erecting some kind of old-fashioned huge wall that would cost millions of dollars. Not to mention, by the way, if we're talking about 1,000 miles of wall, much of that area is owned by private hands. The government would have to engage in very long, eminent domain proceedings to get their hands on the land that's owned by ranchers in Texas and all that. They're not going to be eager to sell it. So many issues like that keep happening with this president. Sad to say.
Right. So, you talked about the lawsuit that these states are bringing against the president and the administration regarding the national emergency declaration. What are you and your colleagues in the Senate, also in Congress, what are they? What actions can you take?
One of the first things that's going to happen is the House will pass. I'm sure they will pass because it is the House majority now. The Democrats, they will pass a joint resolution to terminate the national emergency. And this is a resolution that under the law has to be brought to the floor of the Senate. And we shall see whether the Republicans in the Senate will agree with us that this is not a national emergency. And there are a lot of concerns about the president, any president, using these powers and to deem something a national emergency whenever they feel like it. So there are Republicans who are concerned about the next president being a Democrat who might deem climate change a national emergency and start using the authority to declare certain things and do certain things. So, there are concerns on both sides, but the Republicans are still pretty much behind the president. I'm waiting for them to kind of wake up from whatever.
And you've been a vocal critic of the president, and you made headlines last year during the Kavanaugh hearings. And one of the things you said was that the men should shut up and step up
and do a right thing for the change.
And this is something.
What prompted that was, it's not as though I script any of this, but there was a reporter who asked whether the women on the Judiciary Committee have some kind of a special responsibility on the issues like sexual harassment and sexual assault. And I said, it's not just the women, because who's doing all this stuff mostly? It's the men. And
Yeah.
I said, men, step up and just shut up and step up.
Right, and I mean, I think that really spoke to a lot of people.
Did it speak to you?
It spoke to me because
You're already enlightened, I hope.
Well, it spoke to me as a father, right?
Yeah.
And I have children, and I struggle with what do I tell my kids about the age of Trump? I don't know how to explain this
Yes.
phenomenon. I don't know how to explain the sexual harassment, the things that
Yes.
he says. What do you think we should be telling our children?
I
this
think
time?
that we have to be telling our children that the president is not anybody to emulate in terms of how divisive he is and what he talks about. I think I'm probably the first senator to say on publicly on national TV that he lies every single day.
Right.
And that's so unusual. It gives me no comfort to call the president a liar and a misogynist and a admitted sexual predator. It gives me no pleasure to characterize the president that way, but he has done nothing to change my mind. So as one father said to me, how do I tell my son that lying is not good? So I think we have to distinguish the way the president behaves, as that's not the way anyone should be. And yes, when they retort that, well, he's the president.
Yeah, he's the most powerful man in the world, right? It's hard to.
But yeah, we're losing our status and internationally because of the way he behaves. So we want to have a country where we have a leader who actually brings people together. And this is a time when it's okay to disagree with the president. And in fact, it's important for us to disagree with the president and to say that we have other values that will really support families, keep communities together.
So we're almost to the end of the street here. I just want to get in a quick question. What else are you doing while you're here on Maui? Anything fun?
Well,
the
this
beach,
is kind
one
of fun.
surfing. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding, but no, it's always good to just sitting there, and all these people came up to me and to say hi. And
I heard people shouting out of the car.
I'll be going to the Maui food bank because I donated my shutdown salary to the 3 food banks in our state because the shutdown caused a lot of families to have to go to the food bank.
Yeah.
And I will be meeting with the Kalapapa Monument people because they are very intent on erecting a monument to acknowledge the 8,000 people who were sent to Kalapapa and all the misery that caused. So, I've been working with them for quite a while to enable this monument to happen.
Well, thank you so much for walking Star with us today, Senator. Like one of the people shouting out said, is keep speaking your truth, and we appreciate you so much.
Plug it away.
All right, take care. Aloha.